Hello and welcome to another episode of the Hotspur Huddle, where tonight me, Wes and possibly Nelson will be talking about a lot of different things. Because as we know on this show, we like to break it down, get the tactics board out and talk about everything as well as Spurs and lots of different other things. But Wes, how are you tonight?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you, Holly. It's obviously been a bit of a rotten week to be a Spurs fan with what's happened on the pitch. And then, announcing Travis Scott, and it's like, can he play left back for us? Type of thing. But no, I'm all right. Busy with loads of other bits and pieces as well, but I'd rather be busy than not busy, basically. But no, looking forward to the show tonight. As you mentioned, we've got a lot to get through. Looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it should be good. And also, we've got to mention that there was an announcement this week. So go on, Wes, hit the floor. What's happening next season?
So Fabrizio Romano, here we go, confirmed. I will be joining the team over at Park Lane Podcast for next season. We'll be filling in or taking the role of Mr. Harry Scarf. So I've got big boots to fill because Harry does an amazing job, not only on Park Lane Pod, but with all the other stuff that he does as well. But no, looking forward to obviously joining the team. But don't worry, Holly, I'm not leaving you in the lurch or anything like that. So, but yeah, joining the Park Lane Podcast team from next season. So if you haven't already, get subscribing to Park Lane Pod, obviously, as well as you, Holly.
Thanks. No, but you're right. It'd be a great to see you do your thing on that show, as well as keep your spot on this one as well. And that brings me on to mention, because obviously this show on a Wednesday is sponsored by the wonderful Kofa. So Wes, I'm going to let you hit the floor again.
Yeah, so it's Kofa or Kickoff Football Academy, Milton Keynes. We run lots and lots of different football sessions, such as one-to-one, kickers, holiday camps, birthday parties, girls' football, skills centre, after-school football, etc. So if you do have a young boy or girl, the next Dele Alli or the next Leah Williamson, then please do get in touch with us because we would love to help your child on their footballing journey.
Lovely stuff. So make sure you go check that out. I'm going to do one little bit of housekeeping as well. I mean, this intro is turning out to be like our outro at the minute. But I have teamed up with Alloy Collectors. As some of you may know, some of the videos that I do now, that these do drop. Make sure you go check them out because they are licensed by Tottenham. They're very cool. Obviously, you can put Vicaria and different names on the back. And someone has purchased one with my link. So whoever that was, thank you very much. It does really help the channel. But we're going to dive into the Hotspur Huddle tonight because obviously I don't really want to go over too much about last weekend because that was a bit miserable. But I think we're going to mention someone very special. And I think that is Rihcarlisons. So we're going to bring up the tactics board. And Wes is going to kind of dive into what Rihcarlisons brings to Spurs at the moment.
So, firstly, like I said earlier, it's been a horrible, horrible week for us as Spurs fans. But I think one positive that we have seen is Rihcarlisons and his impact that he's had on the team. Now, the big one, I think, from Derby Day in particular, I mean, the first thing he did was absolutely clatter Gabriel, which was fantastic to see because he's absolutely rattled him. But it was more so focal point at the top end of the pitch and occupying a centre-back, especially when the ball is, for example, with Van der Ven in this sort of channel here. I think we have Ben Davies, obviously, in his usual inverted slot there. But you can see here, let me see if I can draw a line. This will be fun. You can almost see here, that there is a bit of a, look at that, squiggly. A little bit of a passing lane in there. And what Rihcarlisons did really well was just got his body and got himself in between the centre-back here and the ball. So there was plenty of times there where that's all he did. And to be fair, that's all he needed to do. Just get himself in between, allow the ball to stick. Then all of a sudden, you get the likes of Papsar going that way. You get Maddison, I think he was on the pitch at that point, or Kulusevski coming towards the ball. So all of a sudden, then you get players round the ball, and it just allows us to feed off of somebody, but then also have a little bit more than to create. Listen, I think the game against Chelsea, unfortunately, I was at the Bridge, and he fed off scraps for most of the game, which was rather unfortunate. Richarlison, but again, it was more just having somebody to feed up when the game state is you're really under pressure, and you just need somebody to, you need to hook it and get somebody to try and hold the ball up for us. I think that's where Richarlison has excelled in the last couple of games. I mean, he completely changed it when coming on against Liverpool. Obviously, scored a good goal, could have had another, I believe, as well, and was just a bit of a nuisance. And a lot of Richarlison's play is really untidy. His first touch is abysmal most of the time. Like, it will ping off of him. So his second touch is either gives the ball away or it's usually a tackle. But just from a team point of view, he offers us so much. And I think that is why fans in particular have been so confused with Ange when he hasn't thrown him in from the start. Like, the game against Arsenal was crying out for Richarlison. And I said to my dad, like, especially when Werner went off, he's got to bring Richarlison on. Has to. And it took so long for him to come on. And it was just one of those where you're like, oh, okay. And then he started against Chelsea, as I mentioned earlier, feeding off scraps a little bit in that game. But, and again, coming off the bench against Liverpool, had his impact, obviously scored. But I just think Richarlison's impact in games has been good without him doing a hell of a lot, if that makes sense, Hollie.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. It's more of his presence, isn't it? I think when we've got the likes of Sonny through the middle, sadly, as we all know, it started well at the start of the season when everybody was kind of pinging off him and things like that. But where the midfielders kind of declined in a sense of not really gelling, we haven't really got that outlet, whereas Richarlison can kind of give that. I mean, I want to revert it back because I know that on Monday we spoke about the fact of the midfield not really being at its best and whether we should just start seeing Lo Celso. And I know Darren mentions here when he comes on, obviously he passes the ball forward, and we see from Spurs that there is a lot of safe passes at the moment. And I don't know whether that's just for the sake of passing the bloody thing, but it's winding me up. But how do you kind of sit? Because obviously there's lots of Spurs fans saying that Lo Celso is potentially off in the summer. So is there any point of bringing him on? Or do you think it's more of, and we need to put these points up, let's just play him and see how we get, sort of thing?
Yeah, I think with Lo Celso, I genuinely believe that he deserves a chance in this team. And I think, put it this way, like when Lo Celso has played, I don't think any fan can really turn around and go, what's he done? Or he hasn't impacted a game in some way. So I think Lo Celso definitely deserves a chance. And if I am Lo Celso, I'm banging on Ange's door going, what do I need to do to play? And if Ange then turns around to him and goes, look, you're not really in my plans, but we can't get rid of you at this time, you kind of then go, okay. And I think that's kind of the feeling that I'm getting with Ange and Lo Celso. It's like Ange doesn't really trust him, but he's having to bring him on because we've got no one else really, because Maddison's proven that he's unreliable, and he's probably the one that is playing too many safe passes at the moment. Kulusevski is in and out of games a lot more so than at the start of the season. So then you're looking at, and I think this is why fans are going, well, play Lo Celso. And I think the game he played away at the Etihad at City was fantastic. But then I think to a man, probably everybody was that day. I think he changed the game when he come on against Chelsea. It was just a shame that the state of the game had gone by that point. Like, there was no way we were really going to get anything from the game. And I think every Spurs fan that was in the away end, majority of them, because I think there was a few in there that weren't necessarily 100% Spurs, which annoyed my mate who I was with. But we kind of there was a few people that sort of in and around where I was, and we sort of turned to each other when Richarlison went off and went, well, that's the game done. Because we were hoisting all these crosses and there's no one in there. with Rihcarlisons on the pitch. But if you're still going to continue to throw crosses into the pitch, well, at least have a presence in the box, because there might be one that comes off, and then all of a sudden we're back in the game. But as soon as Rihcarlisons went off, we went, well, that's the game done. But yeah, I do feel sorry for Lo Celso, because, like I say, I think his impact this year has been brilliant. I think, you know, people will mention the Villa game as well and how brilliant he was alongside Bentancur, and yeah, I can't get my head round why he isn't playing. The only reason I can think of is that Ange doesn't see him as part of his future plans, and I think that will be a real shame, because there is 100% a player in there. And I think if we all look back at Jose's time when he took over from Poch, Lo Celso was arguably our best player at that point. So yeah, it's just a bit of a shame, because, like I say, there's a definite player in there, and you see that when he plays for Argentina. I just don't think his Tottenham career ever really got going.
No. And I think that's the thing. I can't get my head around. I mean, we spoke about it on Monday, but we can't get our head around the fact that he won't necessarily put Lo Celso to give a chance, but then they put Bayern Hill on. And then you're thinking, why isn't Mikey Moore getting a chance? Like, it's weird how Andrew's kind of processing things at the moment. I don't know. Obviously, hopefully come the summer, it'll kind of all sort itself out, and we'll know why these players weren't used at certain times. But we're going to move on. Obviously, Nelson isn't here, which is lovely, which means we don't have to delve into Arsenal too much, because I don't really want to do that. So we're going to bypass Arsenal, and we're going to talk about the UCL, because they're not in that anymore. And we've got we've had a feisty game yesterday, and we've got another brilliant game tonight. So first of all, we'll start with obviously the Dortmund game. How did you kind of see that one? Because obviously, I don't know how many chances PSG had, but they hit the woodwork so many times yesterday.
Yeah, I'm gonna profess, Holly, I didn't see the game. I was
watched
watching
the game and you didn't.
I was watching Crawley Town take apart my local team, MK Dons, last night in the playoffs, because I don't get many opportunities to watch MK. So I thought, whilst they're on the box, I'll watch them. And they defended worse than what Spurs usually do, and conceded a set-piece goal as well, by the way. And the goalkeeper was pretty much playing right back. I don't know if you've seen the heat map going round or the touch map of Crawley's goalkeeper, but he was literally playing right back, which was interesting. But yeah, I think by and large, this Dortmund side, from what I've seen in their run in the Champions League, have been the team that's gone under the radar. And usually in the Champions League, you get a team like that. It's never, but the thing is, it's never usually of the sort of prestige, if you like, of a Borussia Dortmund. But yeah, they've really sort of surprised everyone. I think Sancho has found, I wouldn't say his best form, because he's still relatively young in his footballing journey, but he looks like the player that I think a lot of people thought he would be. Sabitza's done really, really well in that side. And someone I was looking online today, and somebody tried to say about Dortmund's run and how it wasn't that great, but you're going, hold on a minute, they got through the group of death, which obviously wasn't easy. You had Newcastle back in there for the first time in 20 odd years, a half decent AC Milan side, and you had PSG in there as well. And then I think they played PSV Eindhoven, who are a fairly decent side as well. Beat Atletico Madrid, and I think anybody that has watched Atletico under Simeone knows how difficult it is to get a result against Atletico Madrid, because of how stubborn and how organised they are, especially defensively. And then everybody thought that it was PSG's time, and it's written in the stars for Mbappe to go out in a Champions League final at Wembley, and Dortmund just didn't read the script. And yeah, Karim Adeyemi, those that play Football Manager know about Karim Adeyemi, absolute player, by the way. And yeah, Dortmund have done well. Obviously, people talk about their recruitment, and I wouldn't say similar to Liverpool in this respect, but they kind of make superstars. Dortmund, they don't tend to go and buy them. They get young players in, they give them the opportunity, develop them, and then sell them for an absolute fortune. But yeah, they develop superstars over there, and yeah, it's refreshing, I think, to see a perhaps not so fancy team go as far as they have. So yeah, it'll whoever they come up against, whether it's Jude and Real Madrid, or whether it's Harry and Eric at Bayern, it's gonna make for a really, really good final either way.
And I'm glad that you kind of mentioned obviously tonight's game as well, because that is going to be one as well that's going to be a feisty one. Like I say, I really want Harry Kane to go all the way. I think after obviously the league not going quite in their favour, it's almost like, I know there's going to be that meme, you leave Tottenham, you go win a trophy, but no one deserves it more than Harry Kane, do they?
I think now Kane is getting the respect he deserves from a lot of people. I think it was just easy for people to dismiss him because he played for Tottenham. Whereas now he's gone to Bayern Munich, done exactly the same as what he did at Tottenham, but is hitting ridiculous numbers in terms of his goal output and stuff like that. And now people are starting to really take note of Harry Kane being a world-class centre-forward. Listen, guys, we tried to tell you for God knows how many years that Harry Kane is world-class, and you never believed this. So, yeah, I mean, it would be great for Harry in particular to get a Champions League medal, and I think if he does that, then justifies the move a bit more. The fact they haven't won the league, a bit of a freak, because Leverkusen again come out of absolutely nowhere and have just decided just not to lose games of football. Basically, they just don't. You hear the term and the phrase "never know when they're beaten." That literally applies to this Leverkusen team. And it's getting to the point now where, like, if you were playing them like on FIFA or Football Manager, you'd understand why like laptops or controllers get broken, because they just don't seem to know when they are beaten. So yeah, no, I think we're all rooting for Harry Kane in particular to get something and get that prestigious trophy for himself, to then start to cement his legacy as a top class centre forward and footballer.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I think as much as it pains me that he's not in a Spurs shirt doing it, it's nice to know that he is able to do it. And it is going to be an interesting one tonight. Like Darren says, obviously, Real no pushovers. And I think that's why I'm so excited for this game, because it's literally going to be a head-to-head battle, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think, people were asking me at the start of the season who I fancied to win the Champions League. I said Real Madrid. And you just, as Darren has said, they're streetwise. They know how to go and get the job done. They've been there before. They've still got the experienced and the sort of old guard in there. Your Krooses, your Modric's, and players like that have been there, seen it, done it, and can guide the younger players, the likes of Jude, Vinicius Junior, Rodrigo, guide them through tough moments in games and throughout seasons. I mean, obviously Jude has decided to carry Madrid most of the time and has taken that mantle on of being the main man at Real Madrid unbelievably well at such a young age. But yeah, I think this Madrid team, I mean, that midfield is just unbelievably stacked. Like it's an absolute cheat code. And you think when they add Mbappe to the mix, because it's highly likely that's where Mbappe is going to end up with a number 10 shirt next year. And you're just looking at it going, you might as well just give up now, to be honest, because they're gonna win it next year, or they'll certainly be favourites next year, 100%. But yeah, it's going to be a really, really good game tonight, one that I will be watching, and I'm looking forward to watching as well.
No, definitely. And it's going to be one I'm actually going to watch, because like I say, you know me, I only watch Spurs. So I'm actually looking forward to this one as well. And talking about Spurs, I'm going to bring us back down to earth, because obviously we do have a fixture at the weekend against Burnley. And it'd be interesting to get your kind of takes on how you think Burnley are going to set up, and then how Spurs are going to try and counter it.
Yeah, so I think early part of the season, I think anybody that watched Burnley, sometimes you go in, Christ, what on earth are they doing? Because they were incredibly open and incredibly naive. And I look back at the game that we played at Turf Moor, and I think the first half setup was fairly similar to what you guys can sort of see on screen now, in terms of the matchup. But then second half, I believe Burnley went to a back three, and then almost tried to go sort of man to man. What that left was these massive gaps in the middle for James Maddison, and he just decided to roam. We overloaded the midfield with our inverted fullbacks of Udogie and Porro, but Maddison tore Burnley apart. He was drifting in. Also, he would come really deep in these sort of half spaces here. He would find pockets in there, and it was just one of those performances where, you know, I was speaking to a mate of mine that was this Burnley fan, and he was going, "That's like ridiculous in terms of the levels that Burnley kind of have to even get to just to survive in the league." But my friend was really critical of Company changing it and in the game at Turf Moor and going, tried to go man for man, but like I say, Maddison was probably his best performance, I would argue, in a Spurs shirt. Because like his impact on the game was just phenomenal. But looking back at Burnley now, what they've decided to do is change their setup, especially out of possession, a lot more compact, a lot more disciplined, I would say now. And I think if we look back at the FA Cup game in particular, we saw a lot of this sort of setup here, bit more 4-4-2. You know, not a lot of space in between, you know, the lines here from your defensive line to your midfield line to your attacking line, and then made life really, really difficult for us. Obviously, yes, they've changed the goalkeeper, Muric, much better presence in the goal, better with the ball at his feet compared to Trafford as well. But I think Burnley's approach to the kind of season, especially the second half of the season, has been, well, if Everton and Forest are getting these points knocked off, if we're still in with a shout, with, you know, sort of 10 games to go, then we'll have a real go. So I think that could be part of the reason why Muric has come in. But yeah, I think Company's done relatively well in terms of, since they've changed shape a little bit, like I say, especially more out of possession, a little bit more defensively solid. I just think at times, because of the nature of the team, a lot of young, inexperienced players in general, never mind inexperienced to the Premier League, they're just getting found out in key moments. And I think if we are to do anything on Saturday, we've got to really be sort of up and at it, and, you know, on the front foot and making life difficult for Burnley. We've got to try and really condense the pitch and try and press them as high up as we can, and to force a lot of turnovers in the final third.
No, it's interesting. Like you say, we just actually have to be on it for once. Hopefully Richarlison starts, like we kind of spoke about at the start of the show. And who do you think is going to play, obviously, in that left back role? Because obviously there's no Davies anymore. There's no Udogie. I'm not sure if I want to see an Emerson on that side again. How do you kind of see that one going down?
Listen, nobody wants to see Emerson Royale in that position, but credit where it's due. He had a shocker against Chelsea and he was awful. But one thing I will say is he still came inside and he still asked for the ball. No matter how bad you're playing, you can't knock a player for still wanting the ball. Because how many times would you see a defender or any player really that isn't having a bad game would then go and hide and not want to get on the ball? What I think I would like to see is this particular setup here that I'm going to try and sort out moving forwards. And this is something that I think potentially we could do a lot and do quite well in. And it's a 3-2-5 kind of on the ball, like in possession type of setup that we're seeing City in particular deploy, and Arsenal as well. So you have your three sort of defensive players here. I'd like maybe Romero, Dragusin in here, Van de Ven here. And then you get your inverted player in Porro here to sit alongside Basuma or Højbjerg, whoever that deeper player may be, but to sit alongside them there, because then if we are trying to play up higher, well, we've got 5 players effectively, behind the ball already. So the defensive structure is better. So effectively what you want is 5 players ahead of the ball there and 5 behind the ball. And I think that'll be the key on, well, I think that's why most of the top teams deploy it in that way. So they've got this fairly solid defensive structure there. where we're outnumbered in this sort of type of scenario. But then also you've got players occupying half spaces and pockets. So this could be Yassar or Lo Celso, Bentancur, Maddison, Kulusevski. You've got your wingers occupying the spaces really high and wide to stretch the back line. Because now if I'm a fullback, do I go in here or do I go there? If I go there, I leave space between my centre-back. If I come in, well, there's the out ball then out to the winger. And it just creates a lot of problems. And then you just almost have your striker. It's a pity we don't have Harry Kane, because he could be that real link player from midfield to attack, like we saw him do so on so many occasions. But I think that's a setup that I believe we have the players to do, and actually I wouldn't mind sort of seeing from just for one game, try it out. Why not? It gives us something then to do and to think about them for next season, and whether then we can change and tweak tactically in game. And I think that's why the top teams and top coaches are where they are, because they have that ability to change and adapt mid-game. So it's almost like we're being proactive as opposed to reactive.
I really like that, to be fair. I've never really thought of it in that kind of dynamic. But when you put it on the paper, that's why the tactic board's very good, Wes, because it actually like works in my brain and probably a lot of the viewers' brains as well. I mean, when we talk about whether Ange's going to change his ways, I think that is slightly not changing his ways and keeping his tactics, because like you say, it's still playing that high line. It's just adapting it a little bit better so it works when we play the high line, and hopefully he does deploy it. It would be quite nice to see it against Burnley. As we all know, Ange is stubborn. So I'm saying if it don't happen, give Wes a phone call and we're going to tell you how to do it. But like I say, hopefully we manage to get the points against Burnley, because I think we need them, to say the least. And we need a bit of a boost as well. But before we go, Wes, obviously there is another game at the weekend. And it is the fact that Tottenham are in an FA Cup final. So before we go,
Yes.
I kind of want to get your take, kind of not necessarily how the game's going to go down, but how massive and momentous it is for women's football and football in general.
Yeah, I think as well, I think the big thing is more so like off the pitch. I think that's the thing with women's football at the minute. It's more momentous for stuff that's going on off the pitch. So like a sellout crowd at Wembley, for example, that in itself is momentous. And I think, look, the girls deserve it 100% for the effort that they've put in, the hard work, the determination, because let's not forget, only a few years ago, some of these players were playing part-time. So they were juggling very well-paid jobs and then having to go Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, or whatever, whenever they would train. So I know like that in itself is really difficult to do. Never mind trying to do it trying to do it at the top end of the sport that women's football is. But yeah, I unfortunately can't make the game, and unfortunately I can't watch it, but I wish the ladies team the best of luck. They've been on an incredible journey as well. To think of where the team were not only last year battling relegation to where they are now, top 6, but you know, over the last few years, again, as I mentioned, going from part-time to full-time, and yeah, the caliber of player that we're signing. I mean, who would have thought that Tottenham would have been able to attract a player of Bethany England's quality a few years ago? That would have been unheard of. And now we're signing, you know, her. We've signed Drew Spence. You know, she's had a lot of WSL experience and international experience with the Reggae Girls in Jamaica. Obviously, people would have seen that at the Women's World Cup as well, and how good she is. But yeah, it's been a huge journey for the football club from the women's team. It's not going to be an easy game because Man United are a good side. And I think the games have been fairly close as well when the two teams have played. I think, as I've said before, gutted for Grace Clinton because she's an absolute baller. And she deserves to play on a stage like that. And again, I think I've mentioned before, but to break into an England midfield with Toon, Stanway and Walsh in it, who are, you know, Kira Walsh is arguably one of the best players in the world in her position, and, you know, playing for Barcelona, Georgia Stanway at Bayern Munich, and she's gone in there and has just decided, you know what, okay, you're there, but I believe in my quality and I'm going to show you what I can do. And she's given Serena, I think, a big headache moving forwards. But yeah, I'm pleased for the women's game and the women's team. You know, I've coached a lot of girls in my time and know their stories and their journeys, and it's a little bit more difficult for them. And I think the female footballers in general are a little bit more humble because of it. Yes, they're full time now, but you know that it's still not all glitz and glam. It's getting there and it's on its way. And I think, you know, the way that side of the game is going is fantastic. And, you know, long may it continue for me. Like I say, I think it's nice to see that young kids growing up have those role models that they can see and visualize on the telly. So yeah, long may it continue. I think now, like, the conversations are different. So, you know, I speak to players as well, and it's like, who's your favorite player? And they'll say a men's player, but it's like, okay, what about your women's team? Oh, right. Well, it's, you know, and they reel off a few names, but yeah, listen, if Rob is watching, if he fancies getting Fran Kirby over, that wouldn't be a bad shout, would it, Hollie? Let's be honest, because she's leaving Chelsea at the end of the season. So who knows? She's obviously after a new challenge. Whether she goes abroad or not, I don't know. But listen, sell her agent Beth England, because she'll know her from her time at Chelsea. Get on the blower and get Fran in.
That would be mental. I literally watched her goodbye video and I was like, oh my God. I know I talk about, obviously, when I played football, there wasn't as many kind of names that I could reel off, but Fran Kirby was definitely one of them. And it's mental to see that obviously she's leaving Chelsea after such a long time. But you could be right. Get her across the Spurs and we could be all good. But no, it's amazing for the women's team. It's amazing for Spurs in general. I always say football's football. It is what it is. That's I don't really separate the two. So it'd be amazing. And I like what Darren said here as well. Maybe the ladies winning will encourage, obviously, the men's winning as well. So I like that sentiment, Darren. That would be good. But yeah, it's going to be an action-packed weekend. Like we said, hopefully we manage to beat Burnley. Maybe we see youth come into the side. Obviously, we see Mickey Moore or Mikey Moore, however you say his bloody name. I'm so bad at names. You've seen him on the bench a few times. Burnley could be the one that we get to see it. The sun's going to be shining, hopefully for 3 points and a lovely trophy on Sunday. But Wes, it's been amazing again, as it always is.
Whoa, Hollie, are you? What happened on this momentous day 5 years ago?
Sorry, I got too excited.
You did.
Yes,
you did.
Wes, what happened on this momentous day?
Happy Lucas Moura Day. I can't believe you were going to end the show without mentioning Lucas Moura Day. That's terrible from you. That is absolutely terrible. Like, arguably one of the greatest nights in the football club's history, and you've decided, nah, I don't fancy talking about it.
He'd kill me, man, because I think I tweeted him when he took on everyone and your nan, and he got so many retweets and likes, and he actually commented on it, and I can't believe I totally forgot about it.
That is terrible. Dear. That is terrible. But Hollie, my question for you is, where did you watch that semi-final?
I think I actually watched it in the living room with Mum and Dad. Mum had gone to bed because she was pissed off of me pacing up and down. And then me and Dad were sat on the sofa. And I think I walked out towards the end when I thought, oh, we've lost it. And then Dad was like, no, come back in. And then all of a sudden it all kicked off. And I was like, oh my God, what have I just witnessed? I can't believe I bloody forgot about it. So there we go. But Wes, where were you?
I can't either. Where was I? So I was up at university in Manchester at the time, and I have some family that live up that way. So yeah, my uncles messaged me asking if I wanted to go over there for the game. They are Man United fans, although he was a Spurs fan once upon a time. That's a story for another day. And yeah, watching it with a beer or a couple of beers as well. And then I think when Ziyech scored and it went 3-0 on aggregate, I was kind of like, I think my uncle and my cousin were just like, oh, never mind, Wes. And I was like, yeah, no, at least I can just watch. No, it was Ziyech's goal. But yeah, it was just like, well, at least I can just enjoy watching the game itself, and it's it is what it is type of thing. And then we get one, and you're thinking, oh, right, okay, what might happen here? You get the second one, and you're like, right, okay, come on then. And then the third one's gone in, and I've just completely lost it in the middle of my uncle's living room somewhere in Manchester. And yeah, just completely lost it. And yeah, went back to my flat and stayed up till 4 o'clock in the morning celebrating. My flatmate wasn't best pleased because I'd just got on YouTube and was getting like loads of songs that we would associate with the players at the time, and yeah, just singing that for most of the night. I just couldn't. I think I was absolutely knackered, but I was still like buzzed. Yeah, I was still buzzing from what I'd just witnessed. And then it was like, we're going to a Champions League final. And it was like, in my head, I'm like, I'm going to Madrid. Whether I had a ticket or not, I was in my head, I was there like, I'm going to Madrid. Whether I got a ticket or not, just to be there to say, if I didn't have a ticket, I'd have been like, well, at least I was in the city when it happened. But the fact, obviously, I was really fortunate. Me and my dad, we managed to get tickets, and I think that night in particular will always like stay with me. I think my dad's got it, like memories from the day, like framed at home. I think we sorted that out for either his birthday or Christmas, but little things like that, will always stay with me. But for me, because I wasn't with my dad, and usually me and my dad, as you know, go to football and go to Spurs together, that's why the City away game in that Champions League run tops it, because I was at the game and I was with my dad, and obviously we all know the ending of that one. But yeah, Lucas Moura Day, that was, yeah, I even watched it back today and I was just there, like, it gave me goosebumps, and I nearly welled up a little bit, because the sheer emotion from the commentators, from people that were there that day, is just something else.
It was mental. I can't believe I didn't even bloody mention it. I was too excited about winning a trophy. I totally dismissed it. But no, you're right. It will be a memory that will last a lifetime, 100%. But hopefully we've got many more to come in the Ange reign. Hopefully we can create something like that and maybe better it in the seasons to come. But Wes, I'll go again. It's been an amazing Wednesday night dissecting it. Dissecting Richie. We won't talk about the Liverpool game, UCL, and a lot more. But where can everybody find you, Wes, doing your thing?
Yep. So Twitter's at Wes010, unofficial Moussa Dembele fan account. Although it's turned into a Lucas Moura fan account for the day, obviously because it's Lucas Moura Day. So yeah, usually tweeting things about the greatest Belgian to play in the Premier League. If you're unsure on that, ask any Belgian who's the best player that they've played with or against, and they will probably say Moussa Dembele. Instagram's at Wezo32, usually at a Spurs game. I will be with you, I guess, at some point, Hollie, on Saturday. As we'll both be in attendance for the game against Burnley. And then at Kofa, MK or Kickoff Football Academy for all the football coaching. And then, because you bullied me into doing some football content, which I will try and get back up and running, it's WM32 Football on YouTube and TikTok and Instagram as well. Hollie, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. And don't forget, you're on Park Lane Podcast next season as well, man.
I am on Park Lane Pod next season. So if we can get them up to 1,000 subscribers, that would be great. I know, Hollie, you reached a really good milestone for you and your channel the other day, surpassing 3K. So big up to everybody that has obviously liked and subscribed to your channel as well.
That's because of the great people I get on, man. So you're part of that journey as well. So thank you, Wes. But it's been great. Like I say, hopefully we get a win on Saturday. I'm not too drunk so that I can actually go to the game on Sunday and then not be drunk again, so I can drive me and my dad home. But it should be a good weekend all round. And again, thanks to everybody that's tuned in tonight that's going to rewatch. Hollie's Hotspurs Live will be back on Monday. There's only about 2 more left, so make sure you get watching and all of that, because come the summer we're going to have a lot of transfer shows, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. But like we always say every single time, until next time, come on, you Spurs.